Hey, friends. I hope your day has been well. Welcome to another installment of Wellness Wednesdays. I'm glad that you're joining me here tonight and look forward to our conversation. As you're coming on in, let me know where you're chiming in from, city and state. And then also, if you know of a male, especially a black male at that, uh, be sure to share it and include them on this post tonight. I think they will definitely benefit from it. And anybody that you think I think would benefit from this conversation that we're having on the trauma of being a black male. Some of us have family members, relatives, friends. And so I think this conversation is going to be really important that we have tonight. So again, as you're coming on in, let me know where you're chiming in from, city and state. And please do share. Wonderful, Gilly. Glad you're here. Sister, share on my end. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Yes, again. So thank you as you're coming on in. Let us know where you're chiming in from, city and state. Love to greet you, shout you out. And then also, please share as you're coming on in. I think it's going to be really beneficial conversation that we have on tonight. Great. Awesome. So welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. I'm your host, James Perkins, counselor, coach. I am looking forward to this conversation on tonight. I created Wellness Wednesdays for the primary purpose of helping people to cultivate mental and emotional wellness. And pretty much what that means is helping people cultivate their ability to understand how their thoughts and emotions impact our decisions. And our thoughts and emotions have profound impact on our daily behavior, what we do from really moment to moment. And so I wanted to create a space to help people by providing tools and resources to help them cultivate that mental and emotional wellness. And tonight's topic was scheduled to be on shame, but I chose to, felt led rather, by the Spirit of God to change our conversation to talk about the trauma of being a black male. Many of you have, if you're here in the ununited states, we call ourselves the United States of America, but for all intents purposes, we're not really unified. But you may have already seen the recent events from George Floyd and the incident with Amy Cooper. And what really kind of tipped the scale for me was watching this George Floyd execution, to put it lightly. And so I wanted to kind of create a conversation and a moment to kind of process that here with you. We don't oftentimes talk about the emotions, or we obviously sense the emotions, but don't always process through them. So I wanted to create a conversation to process through that with some other gentlemen that I value and I respect and high esteem. And so I have two special guests tonight, two brothers I value dearly. One is Pastor Quentin Mumphrey, and the other is Pastor Ryan Dozier. So I'm going to bring these gentlemen on, and we're going to get our conversation going on tonight. Pastor Mumphrey, welcome. Pastor Ryan, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you guys on tonight and look forward to our conversation. So, this is, like I said, if you guys may have already been listening, um, I had planned on talking about shame tonight and really how shame impacts our identity, but felt very strongly by the Spirit of God to switch our conversation and talk about the reality and the trauma of being a Black male. And unfortunately, we just live in a time where that trauma happens to be significant, and the experiences that precipitate that trauma have often are reoccurring and have not uplifted. So I'm glad you guys are here with me tonight and look forward to our dialogue and conversation. So, Pastor Quentin, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and then tell us what you do in your role. And then, Pastor Ryan, I'll have you introduce yourself right after Pastor Quentin.
Mm-hmm. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm founder and pastor of New Hope Covenant Church, Chicago, on the southeast side of Chicago. So that's me, also known as Pastor Q. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, brother.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
Awesome. All right. And Pastor Ryan.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be a part of this. My name is Ryan Dozier. I am born and raised here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am staff pastor, the young adult pastor of Raleigh North Christian Center, also pastor of Noonday and our eChurch campus pastor as well.
Awesome. Guys, well, I'm going to get right into it. When I look at the videos, especially of George Floyd recently, I have to be honest. My first immediate sadness and anger, and my second immediate thought was to kind of repress that, mainly because I'm really getting exhausted, to be honest with you, that this is happening so consistently. And I know that's not a long-term solution for handling my emotion. Obviously, as a counselor, as I share with my clients, our repressed emotions or unprocessed emotions, they don't die; they just leak into other areas of our life. And so, it's really healthy for us to process our emotions, even if that's anger. Whatever it may be, it's helpful for us to obviously first name it, but then also to process it, so that we know how to handle and react in a way that empowers us instead of puts us in a state of despair. And so I love, Pastor Ryan, you guys just share what's been your emotional reaction to these events over the past few days as they have come to light.
Wow. Man, I'll start here from today. Of course, everyone's doing ministry online now. And as I mentioned, I'm over Noonday Bible Study. And so for Noonday Bible Study today, all month long, I've been teaching about the fruit of the Spirit. And so today was supposed to be day 3 of the one of the manifestations of the fruit. And my supervisor, my boss, had called me this morning, and she asked if I could check on everyone's mental health, what was their mindset at the time. And I actually was already going down that road. So I said all that to say my initial reaction when I saw the video yesterday of the execution, broad daylight, I was in shock for most of the day. Like I couldn't even finish working yesterday. And then as I processed through it, as my daughter was getting ready to go to bed, and it was horrible timing on my part to have to tell my 7-year-old daughter this. Excuse me. I told her last night, I made her a promise. I said, sweetheart, Daddy promises to be with you when you graduate high school. Daddy promises to be here for you when you graduate college. Daddy promises to walk you down the aisle when it's time for you to get married. And Daddy promises to be here when you become a mom. And when you and your husband become a mommy and daddy like mommy and I. And instantly you all, her eyes filled with tears. I don't know how she picked this up because she didn't see the video. I kept everything what was going on to myself. She did not see anything on TV. But she stopped with tears in her eyes and she said, "Daddy, are you leaving me? Are you leaving us?" Wow. And I said, "No, baby." I said, "Daddy is here for you and mommy. I'm never going anywhere." And you know, we play rock, paper, scissors every night before she go to bed, or Uno. So, you know, we did our normal thing, and she walked into her room and she said, "Okay." Now you all, I didn't know that she was crying. She had turned her face to her wall. My wife was going in to say prayers with her, but my daughter, you all, had been crying for 10 straight minutes after our conversation. Wow. And when I heard her crying and my wife talking to her, I walked into the room and I said, "You know, what's going on? What happened?" And so, you know, my daughter's trying to catch her breath and tell us what's going on. And I stopped and I said, "Is it about what you and I had a conversation about?" And she said, "Yes." And my wife said, "Well, what's going on?" And she said, "I don't want daddy to die." Mm. And so I stood there, you all, with tears in my eyes, and I'm saying to myself, I should not have had to have that conversation with my 7-year-old daughter. You know, and I told her that, you know, there were 2 police officers who, and I had to put it in her language, who are not kind to George Floyd. And she immediately equated that with me dying. You know, so my initial reaction, man, I was sad. I was ticked off. I'm angry. You know, I know this is not the preacher thing to say, probably not the Christian thing to say, but I don't want to read no other scripture. I don't want to pray no more.
Bust some heads.
Yeah, I want to bust some heads, man. I really do. And I want our country, this is the last thing I'm going to say, I want our country to stop acting as if this is not a heart issue.
Man.
Because that's exactly what it is. It's a heart issue, but nobody is brave enough to say it.
Wow. Man, I can only imagine, man. That is an experience you just never want to have.
Right.
With your daughter. And man, it just breaks my heart to hear her. And this is, you know, one of the things I think we'll get into tonight about how trauma can be passed on. And now she just, for the simple fact that she has this in her awareness,
right,
can precipitate her having to manage anxiety. And hopefully by the blood of Jesus, it doesn't become a significant issue for her. But the fact of the matter is, it is an unnecessary emotion, anxiety that she has to deal. She's going to deal with it already in life, but there's another layer, if you will, that she wouldn't really have to deal with if this problem was not so pervasive and not so epidemic, if you will, in our culture.
Yes,
man. Pastor Q, your initial emotional reaction to these events with George Floyd?
So, you know, emotionally, there was just kind of a wide spectrum of anger. But you know what? One emotion that did not hit me was shock.
Wow.
So there was the anger because, and I think as Black men, and you know, and it's not just Black men. You know, we saw the sister Breonna in Louisville. I believe was killed. I think the end of February, in March. The police in her home. I shared a post last night talking about weaponized whiteness, and I wanted to talk about it, but I think it there was a wide range of emotions, anger, and I think one of the emotions that I felt was was not anger at us, but a question of, when you look at the narrative, the arc of Black history in this country, there's always an onus on us to forgive the oppressor quickly.
Yeah.
Saw this firsthand, and I don't want to get too far ahead of our discussion, but I think I was sitting with this thing of, I think the Bible says be angry and sin not. So I believe it's healthy and godly at times. The Bible talks about the God being angry, right?
Yeah.
So I think when it goes back to, we're talking about the stigma of Black men emotion. A lot of times, see, as for Black men, we have this kind of 3-layered thing that we wrestle with. We have a racial identity, a cultural identity, and a faith identity. Racial identity is that we are Black. Our cultural identity is that we're Black Americans, which African Americans have a unique cultural perspective identity. We are the descendants of not only the diaspora, but we are descendants of those who experienced chattel slavery on these shores of in the beginning, the yet to be United States. And then thirdly, what does it mean as a Black man of faith? And so I'm thinking about all these different parts of me, right? Black man, Black American, Christian, a Jesus follower, right? And I think I've been having this kind of ongoing dialogue in my head about Martin and Malcolm.
Yeah.
Because as I looked late last night, I saw the protest where the brothers and sisters were in the streets, throwing bottles and things at the police, and I get it. I get it. So I think my first reaction was anger. I think I have to be intentional to fight against this numb feeling, because it's numb because we see it so much. And I think that's the benefit and the danger to so much media that we see right now. So I'm sitting last night and I'm sitting with this anger, and I'm just thinking to myself, I think then the other thing that came up was helplessness. Sometimes it feels like, well, God, what do we do? Do we, what do we do? Yeah. Like Pastor Ryan said, you feel the anger of, I want to fight, but then it's like, okay, then what? So I think there was it was anger, grief. I didn't know the brother, obviously, but grief for the pain that not only me, but other brothers feel. I think the fact that Pastor Ryan had that conversation with his daughter last night, when I saw that brother laying there, I have 3 biological brothers. I saw them. I saw my nephews. I saw brothers in my church. I saw brothers like James, who are my covenant brothers, who I've known for years, right? I saw a lot of brothers that I know. And I think the other anger came not only at the act, the anger came with the conditions that let the act take place, and this constant narrative. Because the first thing they said was, well, he was resisting arrest and the police pulled him out. And then the footage came out from the restaurant that showed him complying. So I think there was anger on top of anger. And this anger that says, okay, I know some people are going to start using the F word, forgiveness. I think we need to sit with the anger for a while.
Yeah. What's interesting is, like you said, there's always a sense in which we feel like we need to rush through feeling our emotions, and I think that's kind of counterproductive, because obviously we know people. We've had experiences where people said they have gotten over things, but obviously you still see the seed have that emotion present within them based off just the type of energy they put off, and that carries over. That sets, as I say, any emotion that you carry with you impacts your internal sense of well-being, but it also impacts the environment that you're in. And people don't always really recognize how holding on to that emotional energy will impact your interactions with other people. And that what you just said, I think, was important. If you get numb to it, then you just sitting in this emotion, not even realizing that it's having so much impact on your sense of emotional, spiritual well-being, and impacting the relationships, impacting your work. And so, you go into your workplace and, hopefully you're able to separate um, the that not all white people are the same, but you just can't help but feel, man, some sort of way when you come to an environment and you have your other uh, brothers and sisters of another persuasion, and so it's I've found myself, like you said, having to fight against that emotion of numbness. I told my wife this morning. I said, I just asked her prayer for me because I'm like, I found myself so quickly moving to repress my emotion, and that's not my natural response. Usually, I'm pretty like, what is this emotion? Why am I feeling this way? And try to do that introspective process. But when it's come to moments like this, I found myself so quickly wanting to repress it and move on. And I just don't want and fighting against, like you said, being intentional against fighting against that numbness and that sense of apathy, if you will.
Mhm.
As you guys work in your own environments, and actually, I'll start with this statement. I really believe, and like I said, I was planning on talking about shame, but I still think that it has a place in this conversation. In that, shame is that sense and feeling that I am not enough and I don't have what it takes. And as you were talking, Pastor Quentin, I think what I really was fighting against was a sense of shame because of that sense of despair. And when you said it, I was like, you know what? That's what I was feeling. Is I was trying to push against feeling that sense of despair, um, and underneath that sense of despair was really that root emotion of shame. Like, man, am I really enough in this world? Like, I know, and I want you guys to speak to this as well, that I know intellectually that I am enough, that I have been created in the image of God, that I'm an image bearer. But sometimes what's in my head, it takes a little bit longer for it to get from my head to the heart sometimes. I want you guys to just kind of speak to that as you guys have been just wrestling again with your own emotions and how they've impacted um, your experience. Is that gap from head to heart really big right now for you guys, or where are you guys at on that spread, if you will?
Well, I think there's always a gap between head and heart because we can know things cognitively but not necessarily resonate with them emotionally. I think there's often ways in which we think one thing, right? Even as it pertains to matters of faith, like the one disciple who said to Jesus, "Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief." Right? Uh, there's ways in which faith and doubt can sometimes occupy the same space. There's ways in which hope and frustration can occupy the same space. This is one of the dualities of life, and that God sometimes calls us to hold stuff in tension. So I think that sometimes this lag between what we know in our head and what we feel in our heart. In our head, I know I'm the image of God. I am the image of God. I'm the imago Dei, right? But in my heart, because our heart often relates to what we experience and feel on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
And men, most of the time, that it is not affirmed within us in most contexts that we are the imago Dei, that we are the image of God, right? That we are perfectly and wonderfully made, unless you're intentionally involving yourself in context and in environments that affirm that about you. So yeah, in your head, I know it, but in my heart, I have to remind myself of it because when experiences come that tell me something to the contrary, that's when I got to reconcile that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan.
For me, as you said, Pastor Quinn, I wrestle with, rushing to forgive, because in my head I'm saying, well, Ryan, because you are saved and you love the Lord and you a preacher of the gospel, you need to go ahead and forgive. But in my heart, I'm like, I don't want to forgive nobody. So for me, I feel like that gap has widened, because of I'll be the first to admit, I have become numb. And so what happened to George Floyd, it snatched me out of my numbness, and it made me realize in my head that though I am made in the image of God, that's just my spirit. Because what my counterpart sees, what a white man and a white woman sees, is the hue of my skin. So though I know I'm made in the image of God, and though I even may believe it in my heart, I know when I walk out my door, that don't matter to them anymore. So the gap for me, it became wider. And it was all because I was numb until what happened to George Floyd. And it snatched me out of my numbness. And so now it's almost like where how Paul says that when I would do good, evil is always present. And it's always with me. And I found out that it is in our heart. I thought it was external, but no, he's talking about the battle within. Is because it's easy to live salvation externally, but when I got to live it between my right ear and my left ear, and then as you said, then it has to trickle down to my heart. Then it has to maneuver through the anger I feel, sometimes the evil thought I want to act out. But like you said, Pastor Quinn, I have to be angry and sin not. So that became very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah. What has been you guys' experience, or if you can recount, what was kind of your first and kind of most recent experience with prejudice or experiencing racism, if you will?
For me, my first, the most recent one is 2015. My wife and I went down to Savannah, Georgia, and I was going for a trio conference, and I was one of the speakers for a workshop. And down the block, maybe about a block and a half from the hotel where we were staying downtown Savannah, Georgia. We walked into a tea shop, and my wife was natural at the time, where she still is. So, she has a fro out, it's nice, neat, all that. We walk into the tea shop, and we see a white family. We see probably middle-aged husband and wife, and we see the mother of either the husband or the wife. She had to be in her 80s, something like that. Of course, at the time, President Obama's still in office. And so when we walk in, her eyes, the mother's eyes, just zoomed in, boom, on my wife. And my wife didn't notice it. And I said, babe, don't look now, but these white folks are looking at us as if they've never seen a Black person before in their life. And I remember the mother had walked up to the counter to get some sugar. And I told my wife, I said, watch this. I got up, went to the counter, stood right beside her. Y'all, you would have thought that she had seen a ghost. The woman instantly grabbed her sugar, snatched it, and walked away.
Wow.
That was my most recent one. Looking back, my very first instant, I'm going to say of systemic racism, had to be when I was in the 4th grade. And James, because we're family, we're cousins, but you know about the school system here in Raleigh. I was
Yes.
at Love Elementary School, and my fourth grade teacher, Miss Davis, had said to myself and one of my good friends, we were doing mixed fractions. And this thing scarred me, y'all. And I can tell you who was running for president then. It was 1988. The first George Bush and Michael Dukakis was running for president. Okay. Miss Davis has us up at a board. We're doing the mixed fractions. We didn't do it to her liking. And she always would tell the class a statement, but today, this particular day, she pinpointed at me and my friend. She said, "You two would be good for nothing except to work at Hardee's for the rest of your life, flipping burgers and frying fries."
Wow.
We in fourth grade. Now, you know, I didn't really catch on to it then. It wasn't until I started matriculate through my school life that I realized, you know what, this woman damaged me.
Yeah.
Because for a while, that's the only thing I thought. And my last one is my fifth grade teacher. The year right after that, she told my father, she said, "Ryan is well mannerable. He follows my directions. Anything I ask him to do, he doesn't. But Ryan will always be an average student. He'll never be an honor roll student." And because this was my favorite teacher, you all, do you not know I've never been on an honor roll my entire school life because my favorite teacher said it. And I said, "Oh man, being average is the thing to do."
Man.
Racism.
Man, we don't oftentimes realize how powerful someone's words impact us.
Right.
And later on, we immediately feel the emotional impact of those words initially, but the consequences of their words sometimes, not sometimes, in most cases, have rippling effects,
Yeah.
especially early on, because we're not at the developmental stage where we can critically reason and say
Right.
to ourselves that what this person is saying to us is not accurate, it's not true.
Mhm.
And because we don't oftentimes have that ability early on, what happens is that we internalize that trauma, if you will, because what I simply define trauma as is a distressing emotional experience, and so for a lot of us, to be honest with you, especially in our community, because and this is not, I'm not making light of people who experience physical or sexual abuse, but because we don't we have such a limited scope and a limited definition of what trauma is, we don't oftentimes consider ourselves traumatized by other experiences. Therefore, things that have impacted us continue to have impact years and years, sometimes down to the next generation, because we're passing on our own ideology, our own beliefs, our own limitations to our kids. And so, you know, there's a book called The Body Keeps Score, and it talks about really how we our bodies keep this. Our bodies embody, if you will, embody trauma. And you know, I was just thinking the other day that because of the culture that we're in, it's almost really hard to metabolize and process this all at once. So we just have so much lingering trauma that continues to persist because we have really had an emotional space to not have it even in our environment for us to process and just have a reprieve. It's almost like every other day, and I'm using hyperbole here, but it feels like that we're having to face with this experience. And the unfortunate part about this is, and I'll have you speak to this, Quentin Mumphrey, because I saw a post you made earlier today, is one of the unfortunate realities is what we are seeing today is not something that has just started. It is just something that has been exposed, and now we have proof of what has already existed. I'll have you comment on that, Pastor Quentin.
So, one of the things is sometimes, especially in our current political climate, and going back to what you said about trauma, I think we underestimate the prevalence of trauma in our lives. Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, in her book, The Deepest Well, talks about the impact of trauma on even children and how their brains develop and how that impacts them academically and their social development. And so I think one of the things is we have to widen our definition, our scope of what we mean when we say trauma. Poverty is trauma. There's a lot of different forms of trauma. And so, but going back to the post, when you look at the arc of race relations in America from 1619 to 2020, right now, last year we celebrated the 500th anniversary, mark the 500. I don't want to say celebrated, but the first slaves that were brought to Jamestown in 1619. So last year was the 500-year, memorial of that. And so over the last 500 years, right, 500 years, these things have been happening. And, I think there's a term that we have to really familiarize ourselves with, and it's microaggressions. Because much of what we experience with racism, like what Pastor Ryan was talking about, the lady at the counter, that's a microaggression. So, sometimes we only think of encounters with racism as, this cop pulled me over and made me get out of my car and frisked me and made me stand outside and humiliate me on the side of the highway. But there are microaggressions that we experience every day. Anytime I go downtown, I live in Chicago, I go downtown to the store, I get on the elevator and I can't tell you how many times I get on the elevator. And if there's a white woman on there, they get to the furthest end. I mean, they will squeeze themselves into the wall, right? Wow. And, the part of me won't be like, lady, I don't want you at all. Got a job, so I don't want what's in your purse.
Yeah.
Really, you anyway. So, when you look at the arc of race relations, it's not that, and then people are trying to say, well, President Trump has emboldened these racists. That may be true on some levels, but the fact of the matter is, they've always been there. And I think the significance of what has happened with George Floyd in Minneapolis is we looked at racism many times as a Southern thing. But what happened was that Dr. King and others exposed this is a Northern problem too. It was just more legislation. There was more legislation that permitted it in the South, but you had more sophisticated forms of segregation, racism, and oppression in the North. Through things in Chicago. Chicago is a pioneer of restrictive covenants and redlining on real estate segregation. And all of these forms of racism and systematic oppression, school resegregation, 1954, we just celebrated the anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education from 1954. But now we're in an era of school resegregation. There was a study done recently that said schools are actually as segregated now as they were prior to Brown versus Board of Education.
I believe that.
The difference with the things that we're saying now, which led to my post, is that because of social media, smartphones, and things like that, this stuff is getting filmed, so we're seeing it more. The post that you're referring to, Brother James, is the one I talked about, Carolyn Bryant, the lady who was Emmett Till, and which led to his murder, right? And I parallel between her and Amy Cooper, the lady who called the police on the brother in Central Park. Yes. Right? So here it is. You have a Harvard-educated brother who's a bird watcher in Central Park. There's an area of the park that it is a sign says, please leash your dog. He's a bird watcher, but bird watchers have been coming online saying, dogs being unleashed is a major problem because they chase the birds. So how he tells the lady, can you put your dog on a leash?
Yeah.
He goes off, and so then threatens him and says, I'm going to tell the police an African-American man is threatening me. She told him what she was going to do. But let you know there was malicious intent on her part.
Absolutely.
And then she tells him that she calls 911 and then goes through these whole voice inflections on the phone to lend credence to what she's saying, because throughout history, if you want to get white America worked up, all you need is a scared white woman with tears in her eyes saying that a black man even thought about doing something to her.
Even thought about it.
You're preaching good.
Even thought about it, right? So, but you notice, she didn't say he did anything. He threatens her, right?
Mhm.
Emmett Till, she accused him of whistling and making overtures to her. He's 14 years old.
Yeah.
Right? But yet, two grown men armed dragged him out of his family's house, his cousin's house that night, and that was the last time anyone saw him alive again. But what we see is a history in America. It's amazing to me how when police do stuff like what has happened in Minnesota, the narrative, I haven't seen it as much with this case, but the narrative has always been, we don't know the facts. Let's wait to see what happened. For most white Americans, right? Let's wait to see what happened. Well, probably wasn't compliant. Well, he was probably blaming the victim, right? And so it happened commonly in this arc of race relations are blaming the victim and scandalizing the victim. In other words, they will go through their social media accounts, and if he said one cuss word in social media accounts, right? Or if they even suspect that he smoked marijuana or anything like that, or anything, that became the narrative of them. But then you have this boy Dylan Roof, right? Let's go there.
Burger King. Jesus, Lord have mercy.
Mother Emanuel, AME in South Carolina, went into Bible study, sat in Bible study for 45 minutes, and then began shooting the people who were there. And so, what's amazing, when Dylan Roof, when that case happened with Mother Emanuel and Dylan Roof, you didn't hear a chorus of white America saying, oh, he's a thug and a terrorist. Because anytime someone plots a scheme that is racially motivated and kills a group of people based on racial hatred, that is an act of terrorism.
It is.
But that word terrorism is never used in reference to these white mass shooters.
Never.
And there was no mention of the fact that Dylan Roof was burning flags and had all these symbols on the social media. There was no mention of that in the media.
None.
Yet, anytime a black person is killed, even if they're the victim, there's a subtle, insidious, and sinister way in which the media finds some way to mention something that is less than shining about their personal life.
And the dichotomy there, so it really irritates me. Because as I watch, the distinction I see is if it's a person of color, they rush to demonize the person's character, bring up if they have a criminal background, as you said, to justify the treatment of that person. If it is a Caucasian brother or sister, they rush to talk about the person's mental state of mind in that moment.
Lone wolf.
The mental, and I'm like, man, just this sheer, why can't your empathy be given to the person of color as well?
Because it's too much like right.
Yes, it is a sheer rush to.
But listen, but if we go back in American history, Black folk, if you go back through the history of Black people in this country, we for the last 500 years have been fighting to be recognized as human. Let's go there.
Let's do it.
You saw signs that said, I am a man.
Yeah.
During slavery, slaves were considered property like the animals. So Black folk, not just practically, but legislatively, were fighting to be recognized as human. And so that goes back to this whole thing of the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to jump in on that, anytime that Lassie, Ren 1010, somebody Cat, life is more valuable than mine, we have a problem, man.
Yeah.
We have a problem.
And they are adrenaline.
Yes. Oh, and you know what, Pastor Quentin, I'm saying this sarcastically. You forgot about the pizza that they gave Dylan. You know, don't forget that. He got that meat lovers.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's
on the way after killing
on
9
the
people.
way. And so that's why I said earlier that this is really people, we can try to politicize it and legislate it, but it's really a sin issue of the heart.
Yeah.
And nobody from the white side, there's a few, you know, but nobody wants to say, you know what, this is really embedded in our heart.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a sin issue and a system issue. You know, Ephesians 6,
yes.
Ephesians 6, we wrestle not against flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Power, principality, right?
Yes.
And so I believe it's a sin issue, but I believe it's also a system issue. And
Yes, sir.
the thing is, Pastor Ryan, a lot of times white evangelicals are comfortable with saying it's a sin issue because that takes the responsibility off of the
scapegoat,
off of the church as a whole from doing something about it. Because that means, well, we just need to lead more people to Jesus. Well, the Ku Klux Klan claimed Jesus and was stringing up Negroes at the same time.
You're right, sir.
It's a sin issue, but it's also a system issue. But we have to. But here's the problem: we got to recognize the sin in the system.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We got to recognize the fact that from at its core, from its very foundation, from its inception, the system has been flawed. What people talk about with the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, when they say, "Behold, these truths to be self-evident that all men were created equal," they were not talking about us.
They weren't.
Us men.
No.
And this is the one of my mentors, Pete Scazzero, writes that, and he talks about this in the about our in the lens of transformation, and he says, you know, that Jesus may be in your heart, but your grandpa's in your bones.
That's it.
And what he's getting at behind that is that, yes, we all come to faith in Jesus, but yet and still at the same time that we become a member and a family member in the body of Christ, we still have been present in our family of origin, which we have been impacted by from the time that we're born up until that present moment. So really the process of sanctification is really unlearning our patterns of behavior that have been instructed, have been taught, have been embedded in us. And to the degree that we have the capacity to understand that everything that we taught was not correct, and everything that we have benefited from is not positive. And I think that's in part where people have a hard time reconciling issues, is because they've always been on the end of experiencing the positive benefit of their beliefs, of their privilege. And I think this will be I think this time, as you said, is it's always existed. It's always been an issue for our country, and we've just never healed from it. And I think that's one of the unfortunate part about as I look at this issue. Unlike other countries that have had systems of racism embedded, for some of them, they've went through this period where the country as a whole has admitted their part in it and attempted to make those rights. But never for the United States have we fully owned and said, this is an issue, and have been intentional about repairing and essentially going back to really systematically think about the laws that we have in place. I mean, the reality matters is that there's still some laws that are in place now that because they've never been amended, they're still on the book and they're still prejudiced. And we all know that yes, our criminal system is broken and unjust and unfair. And I think one of what I want people to hear tonight is to not fall into despair. The immediate emotion, like you said, Pastor Mumphrey, is to feel that despair, feel that sense of hopelessness. And I just want to encourage people to fight against that. And the only way that one of the ways that I think we're going to do that is to embrace our own emotions, but to also realize that we have a capacity and a responsibility to use our story to impact. And this is, we've been saying this, I love my white brothers and sisters I love, and I thank God for the ones who have not just only opened their mouth, but used their privilege to the benefit of brothers and sisters of color. And this has been a systemic issue. I'm going to actually throw this question to you guys while it's fresh in my mind. As you guys are, Pastor Kears, you're leading your congregation, and then Ryan, as you're interfacing with your young adults in the ministries that you lead, what are some of the things that you guys are having to help your own parishioners and people that you lead to process through?
Well, one of the things is that there need to be spaces. One of the things that, some of the men in my church, we do a thing called man cave, where we just have a check-in time. It's just how you doing, where you at, how's your week, right? Part of the thing is we don't always, particularly for Black men, we don't always provide platforms and spaces for people to open up, talk, and just kind of share where you at. Because, Black men, sometimes we can be a little bit averse to vulnerability. And because there is so much external pressure in the world around us to keep this stuff out of shell, to have it all together, to have answers, to kind of keep things moving, to, take a hit, but keep on stepping. And so we have to, one, provide spaces where we can have these conversations, and ladies have their own thing too. So, we have to provide spaces, which is one of the things we strive to do at my church, is provide spaces for people to, one, really just kind of share, to understand what it means to kind of live out this thing called faith. That it's not just having cute little scriptures to quote, but it's understanding how the Word of God applies to our lives and how we live out this thing, and that this is not this sanitized view of Jesus, just washes his hands and puts on lotion. This same Jesus who said bless the children is the same Jesus who fashioned a whip and drove money changers out and flipped over tables. And so I think we have to understand that we have to deconstruct and decolonialize some of our theology, and really wrestle with what it is that we believe in light of the scripture and not in light of only the traditions of the Western church. I think that, and then the other thing that I do is encourage financial empowerment for our people. Right now, our church, some of our members are going through a financial empowerment strategy training. I've got a few of my members who started businesses and things like that. So I encourage entrepreneurship because one of the things is that we will always feel as though we are at the mercy of a system when we are dependent on the system to eat. One of the strengths in the civil rights movement, particularly in the bus boycott, is that pastors were able to transport people who were not riding the bus because they were able to be independent. Many of them were full time at their church, so they were able to be independent. They didn't have to worry about, a 9 to 5 that they had to punch a clock. Many of them were able to spend part of the day transporting people who were participating in the bus boycott. And so I think the other thing, lastly, is we have to continue to engage in spiritual warfare. We have to recognize the fact that spiritual warfare is not just, somebody on the altar purging and folk, but spiritual warfare includes high level warfare. It includes powers and principalities, and the Bible says in Ephesians 6, spiritual wickedness in high places. And so we have to recognize that some of these systems that are designed is not by accident. They were strategic. They were intentionally designed by the enemy to perpetuate some of the systems and oppression and pain that we see today.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Q. That's on point.
So far as what I'm doing with the young adults, tomorrow we started probably last month, I believe. No, I'm sorry, early this month. We've been doing prayer calls, bi-weekly prayer calls on Thursday mornings, because most of them, they're recent college graduates, and some of them are already in the workforce. And so what I've been doing, I've just been emailing, communicating with them through that way, just seeing how they're doing, how they're feeling. I'm pretty sure tomorrow morning we'll probably hit on what has happened in Minnesota as well as in New York, just to gauge how everyone is feeling at this time. Transparency, I believe, has been key also. Like I said, so far as our noonday Bible study is concerned, today, it was just a transparent moment. We just talked, and I was intentional on telling the people who logged in today that, look, you all, we're talking today. We need to talk. I need to talk. And, I just shared with them my frustrations, and in turn, it allowed them to share their frustrations as well, because a lot of times as pastors, as Black men, as you said, Pastor Quentin, we don't have a space to emote. We don't have the platform to emote. And if we do emote, we're angry or we're weak, and but I just created a space today to say, look, y'all, this is how I'm feeling. Now I want to know how you all are feeling. And it freed a lot of people up to be able to have conversation and just talk. I really think it was probably one of the best noonday Bible studies that I've had since we've been going virtual. Also, as a congregation as a whole, something that Pastor Quinn mentioned, our pastor is big on making sure that we are financially free. There are two couples. One of them, I'm 40 years old. First couple is 42 and 43. They are completely debt free. They paid their house off, excuse me, in December of 2019. Paid it off. And so they lead our financial ministry, and it's called FLE, Financial Learning Education. They lead that. And so they are also giving tools and equipping us to become debt free. Because as you said in that scripture in Ephesians 6, and that with the spiritual wickedness in high places, scripture says that money answers all things. And so if I'm free financially, God can drop me, as you said, in that system that was already set up. He can set me in that place to be a change agent to bring down that spiritual wickedness in that high place. But my money, I have to be free in my money financially. So, we're doing that. Our entrepreneurship ministry, they're really driving being owners of property at this time. I know myself personally, my wife and I, we've been discussing about real estate investment, things of that nature, so that we won't have to continue to be behind the 8 ball. And, as Tyler Perry said, we can go ahead and build the table. If you don't want to invite me to the table, that's cool. I'm going to build one.
Yeah.
So that's what's been going on that we have been doing so far.
I think these are great practical ways for us to really help combat systemic racism by creating safe spaces for us to be transparent, to essentially emote so that our emotions don't end up owning us.
Mhm.
Financial empowerment is huge. I do believe, as you have already articulated, just the way our tax code is set up, to prosper business owners and landowners. And if you don't own those two entities, then it's really hard for you to have financial freedom. And my gist is find what God has called you to do and gifted you to do.
Mhm.
Do that well. Be effective at it, because I think if you're effective at something, the money is going to come with that. And with that money that you have, now you can use that money to strategically create other avenues for you to expand the kingdom in your other areas of interest. But that financial piece is really important. And just protecting your own emotional well-being. I think all financial decisions are emotional, that we make
Mhm.
financial decisions based off how our current emotional state is. And if we're not cognizant or have ownership of um, our own emotional well-being, then we can make decisions that are not in the best interest of who we are in our identity, but also for the people that we're responsible for. Any other? I'll give you guys a couple moments. Any other practical ways that you think we can combat systemic racism? I know we've already mentioned a few. Any other things come to your mind? I don't want to rush you guys off as of yet.
I wish, I really wish, gentlemen, that some of our white brothers and sisters were not afraid of just having a sensible conversation with us in order to combat systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to have a conversation with me, understanding that yes, I'm going to get emotional. Yes, my voice is going to raise. Yes, I may pound my fist on the arm of the chair or whatever, but it does not mean that I'm the angry black man or something or anything of that nature. What it's saying is that I have had to deal with this for 40 short years of my life, and then see what my mom and dad has had to deal with as they shared things about them growing up through Jim Crowism and all that. And then, of course, the little bit of history that we were taught in school. So I have all this that I need to get out. And I'm probably not only speaking for me at this time, whenever this conversation will be had. I really wish that someone would be brave enough just to come and say, how can I get this right?
Yeah.
And how can we walk together through this? That's, I really think if it starts there, um, we'll be okay, because I want them to understand that all three of us that's up here, and probably even more black men that's watching tonight that are fathers and stuff and husbands, our conversations are not even the same in our houses. You
Yeah.
know, we have to talk to our children. We have to give them pre-corrects before they leave the house. If you get stopped by the police, this is how you need to behave. This is what you need to say. And then we have to end it with, because the goal is for you to get back home
Yeah.
safely. We have to talk to our wives and say, sweetheart, the goal for the day is for me to get back home.
Mm-hmm.
Who ever would have thought a black man being a husband would have to have that conversation with his wife and say the goal is not for us to be financially successful, not for me to be a great husband to you and a great father to you, which we will be and we are, but the goal now, gentlemen, is for us just to simply make it back home.
Last week, I was at my office. Actually, I just concluded our Wellness Wednesdays and had reached out to my wife to tell her that I was on my way home, and I was shutting things down. Um, Lost track of time, was here for another 30, 40 minutes than I anticipated. And I get a call back from my wife and she's saying to me, "No, where are you?" And I was like, "I'm on my way home. I just left a little bit late. I'm sorry." And in the moment, it didn't even register to me that her frame of mind was I had called her and told her I was on my way home, and she knew that we only stayed 15 minutes from my office. It's been 40 minutes. And just that 20 minutes, things are running through her mind that shouldn't have to run through her mind of where is my husband? It's 10 o'clock, calling me that he was going to be home in 20 minutes. And so we got home, and she was just kind of sharing it with me how she just really got emotional because she's even have to consider that when I call her, if I'm not home in 20 minutes, she's having to think about what else is going on. And it should just never be that way. I have a boy, I have a black son, and when I think about the reality of raising him in our current culture, I do sometimes feel afraid. I feel sad, and I feel hope. I feel kind of all those emotions sometimes all at once, sometimes at different moments. And I just think it's, like you said, really important for us to have these conversations and to embrace them. Yes, they should not be a part of our reality, but the reality is they are. So don't shy away from them. Have them, cultivate them with people that are that you have influence with. And so, fellas, I'm really glad that you guys had a chance to join me tonight. Pastor Q, Pastor Ryan, I'll let you go first, Pastor Quentin. If people want to touch bases with you, how can they do so?
Sure. You can follow me. I'm kind of at my limit on my Facebook friend list, but they can follow me here on Facebook at Quentin Mumphrey on Facebook. On Instagram, the only Q Mumphrey. They can also follow my church page on Facebook at New Hope Covenant Church Chicago, and then on Instagram, our church is New Hope Chicago. So you can keep up with it. That's our website there. You can also follow our Facebook page. We post their update there. I go live every Monday night. And then I do virtual corporate prayer every Tuesday night. And of course we're live on Sunday morning, streaming at 11 a.m. So they can follow me on those platforms, also on Twitter at Pastor Q Mumphrey. So they can find me on social media. I'm there. Well, we also have a YouTube page, so under the same name as our Facebook page, so they can follow me there.
Awesome. And yourself, Pastor Ryan?
Yes, they can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at JustRyan79, and also on Facebook is right here on the screen, Ryan Dozier. Again, I am the young adult pastor and church campus pastor of Raleigh North Christian Center, and you can hit us up on Instagram at I Follow RNCC, or our Facebook page, Raleigh North Christian Center, and of course our website, rncconline.org. And they can follow us there. But me personally is Instagram at just Ryan79, Facebook Ryan Dozier. And like Pastor Q said, I jump up there every now and then. Most of my posts are uplifting. I try not to be too preachy and all that stuff, man. We just have some fun. And I really, really enjoyed this conversation, and I appreciate you for allowing me to be a part of this, and just happy to meet Pastor Quentin and just gain a new friend. So I'm about to start following you, bro.
Well, I'm glad you're able to join me, man. I really value, again, you guys, your perspective and your influence. For those of you, again, who have attended, thank you for your time. We have a free resource that you can grab at the link below, jamesperkins.help, wellness gift. It's pretty much a link to one of our free courses, 5 Days to Your Best You. I think it'll be beneficial in just helping you cultivate your own mental and emotional well-being. So you can grab that at any time. And then as well, if you're in need of therapy. If you're needing someone to talk with, process through these emotions, James Perkins .help, jamesperkins.help. You can just click on the main tab, and you'll see an option that says Talk with James. And you can set up a time to chat for us to do a discovery call, whatever. My goal is really, again, providing spaces for people to help them own their story. And because I do believe that we are our greatest when we have embraced our own unique narrative. And when we embrace that, God can use that, and we can step more powerfully into the work God has called us to do when we understand who we are and who God has created us to be. So again, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for sharing your comments, for tagging people. If you know of anybody, again, who will benefit from this conversation, tag them in the post. This will be available for the foreseeable future. And again, thank you on tonight for attending. Pastor Quentin, Pastor Ryan, thank you guys tonight for your support and for your sacrifice of time.
Can I say one thing? Because I had some people tune in tonight. Tomorrow, our church, we have a mental wellness ministry as well. And just so happened that team falls under my care as well. So it's going to be virtual tomorrow night on our Raleigh North Christian Center page at 7 p.m. I'm going to share it as well. So just in case anybody else that's watching, we'll have our mental health summit tomorrow. And I know they're going to hit some of the things that we probably discussed tonight also.
Perfect. And Ryan, if you got the info in our comment section after this, that'll be great.
Yes, sir.
We'll make sure people can stay connected to that. Again, thank you guys for your support. Thank you for tonight. You guys have a great evening.
Yes, sir. You too now.